drive-through queue at Starbucks in Florida. The man in the car behind him was getting impatient and angry, leaning on his horn and shouting insults at both Arthur and the Starbucks workers. Arthur looked in the rearview mirror. The face of the impatient driver behind him was twisted with anger. "I'll show you what happens to rude and impatient people," thought Arthur. But then he caught himself. He refocused his eyes and noticed that his own face didn't look much different. In one moment, Arthur had what he calls a change of consciousness. He chose to keep calm and change the negativity into something positive. Arthur paid for both his own coffee and the other man's order, and then he went on his way. When he got home at the end of the day, Arthur discovered that his actions had featured on the national news. Within 24 hours, through social media, it had spread around the world. No doubt you too have met mean, rude people. It could be that they were simply inconsiderate. They weren't thinking about the effect of their words or actions on you, using the last of anything and not replacing it. The paper in the copier at work, petrol in a shared car, or the loo paper at home. Maybe, though, it was someone speaking over you or interrupting before you'd finished speaking. Perhaps they casually dismissed your opinion on a matter. It could have been someone blocking the aisle in the supermarket or reaching past you for something on a shelf. Perhaps they jumped the queue at the checkout. Why are people rude? Mostly, when someone is rude, thoughtless and inconsiderate, it probably just happened in the moment. They didn't make a conscious decision to be rude and mean. They didn't wake up in the morning and think, "Today I am going to be rude and horrible." They didn't know they were being rude. They weren't thinking. They were just being thoughtless and inconsiderate. Maybe they were stressed. They were in a hurry, or feeling left out or ignored. Perhaps, though, they were being deliberately mean, impatient with you or deliberately dismissing, ignoring or excluding you, or their rudeness is a habit. It's the way they usually interact with the world. Whatever the reason for their behaviour, it's not easy to respond kindly. Often, when others are inconsiderate, rude, or even hostile, we assume the worst and either defend or attack. But often that just sets up a new cycle of rudeness and resentment. What to do? How can you, like Arthur Rosenfeld, have a change of consciousness? How do you avoid being rude and unkind back? By forgiving. The problem with forgiveness, though, is that so often it feels like you're giving in and letting the other person off, letting them get away with their rudeness. Forgiving. Even if it's a relatively small thing, a friend or colleague not calling to say they'll be late, or someone texting or checking social media during a meeting or a meal, or the cashier at the petrol station who not only didn't acknowledge you, but continued to talk on their phone as you paid. It's not always easy to think kindly and forgive the other person. There's much sentimentalizing of forgiveness. The idea that forgiveness involves letting the other person off and having kindly feelings towards someone who has annoyed or upset you in some way is idealistic. It gets in the way of understanding the real thing. Forgiveness is first and foremost for your benefit, not the person who hurt or offended you. Forgiveness means recognizing that you've already been annoyed, irritated, or embarrassed once. You don't need to let the offense and the hurt burden you by holding on to it. Forgiving someone isn't letting them off. It's simply letting go. Letting go of the resentment, frustration, or anger that you feel. Putting someone else's actions behind you and moving on. Whether or not the other person has apologized, there's no point in tormenting yourself any further. Forgiveness doesn't mean you'll respond kindly, but it does.